I grew up, we were doing big band music, and my brother and I came out of the big band era. I played on the Ray Anthony's Bunny Hop at the Ryman Auditorium. He was in Ted Weems' band in the Maritime Service. And so then we got involved in the country music. And so Nashville wasn't really known for country music at that time. And then all of a sudden, when people started thinking of us as a country music town, then they have a rock and roll hit come out of there, showed that we could do stuff other than that, other than the country stuff. Actually, my brother and I had 3 studios. The first one was the second in Lindsley. The first one was. Second one in Hillsborough Village. And then in 1955, we bought a house and built a Quonset hut behind it. And that became known as the Quonset hut. It was Bradley Film and Recording Studios. But over a period of time, we had to do the recording in the Quonset hut. That was going to be our film studio. But we became too big. Actually, Gene Vincent was one of the reasons, because wouldn't hold all the sound, and the drummers playing loud, and the saxophone players and the other voices were added. So we had to move into a bigger studio, move from the small studio into the Quonset hut. Well, it took a while for us to embrace that. It took me a while to embrace country music, because my brother and I came out of the big band era. And we were all just trying to figure out the music scene and the recording scene, and we were doing basically country. But then when Gene Vincent hit town, and also Buddy Holly in 1956, we really didn't know what to do with them. And so we did Buddy Holly kind of rockabilly. With Gene Vincent, he had his own band, and so that was an entirely different story, because they were really creating rock and roll at that time, and we had an appreciation for music as a whole, regardless of what form it was. I think I came along at the right time to be here before the recording scene started, and my brother and I played the first notes in the first commercial studio, 1947, and to be able to come out of the dance band and to adjust to that, it took quite a bit of doing for both of us, because he was quite a fine piano player, and he was the piano player on the early sessions. And then he had a problem in the fact that he'd hear playback and it would bug him, because that wasn't what he wanted to hear in the way of the balance. And he finally told Chet Atkins that he said, "I'm gonna have to be like you. I'm gonna have to sit in the control room to get what I want on the records. Can you recommend a piano player?" And he said, well, Chet said, "Well, I got this tall, skinny kid named Floyd Kramer. You might try him." And of course, you know how that worked out. That's Floyd playing all those beautiful stuff on Brenda Lee's and on Patsy Cline's stuff. And it does take a lot, because in my case, I'm supposedly the most recorded guitar player in history, and I've gone in the Hall of Fame, Country Music Hall of Fame. But I played all kinds of music. Early on, I wanted to play the banjo. My brother said, "No, the banjo's going out of style. You got to learn to play the guitar." I learned to play the guitar, and after about 5, 6 years, he said, "You got to learn to play the banjo." Well, I learned to play the banjo, and I played Papa John Gordy's Dixieland Band. So when I played the intro on the Battle of New Orleans on the banjo, it wasn't that hard for me. But my point is, I played a lot of different styles of music. I played the country music, the big band music. I worked with 25 people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Worked with Henry Mancini, and I was just listening to an album yesterday for the first time since we cut it with Hugo Montenegro, where he did some strings, and then he did the Nashville guitars. So I think that you have to learn to play all styles of music, because if I played one style of music, it was rock and roll, it'd really be hard to maintain a career, because there's a lot of really good rock and roll guitar players. And if I was just a country guitar player, then that would limit your chances. And I am a frustrated pop jazz guitar player, so I've tried a little bit of everything, you know, and it's a kind of jack of all trades, and you know, maybe good at a couple of them. Ken Nelson was the most serious person that I ever met in my life. He was very likable, but he was straight to the point. whatever he thought, and he always had an opinion. He was right straightforward in telling you what it was, and we had a tremendous respect for him because he treated everybody with respect, but he was absolutely the captain of the ship when he was in the studio. But Ken invited us in. So we go in, and this is not in the Quonset hut. This is the first studio we built, which was, we knocked out the middle floor in the house, and it was the bottom floor of the basement was the floor of the studio. And so we go in, and Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps are in there playing. And we're in the control room. And I remember that really there wasn't that many chairs. They had a couple of chairs, and the engineer sitting down, Ken sitting down. So there was a problem. The drummer was playing so loud in that room that his sound was going in Gene Vincent's mic. And that was creating a problem for our engineer. If it was creating a problem for our engineer, it was creating a problem for us as studio owners. So we're standing there and trying to figure out what to do. And Owen goes out, and my brother, and he moves Gene Vincent back 5 feet. He moves him back 10 feet. He finally moved him completely out the door of the studio into the hallway. And the only opening was the cable, the microphone cable cord was the only opening. And that's where he sang Be-Bop-a-Lula. And it made his voice, the sound of his voice very clear. Mort Thomas, and our engineer, had to have another, excuse me, had to have another tape machine. And he put kind of some tape on that, and he made that slapback echo. And that was kind of the standard for the type of echo you use as opposed to like a room echo. So they made the record. And Gene Vincent comes in, we listen to the playback, and Ken is real pleased with them. And so we're very pleased. It was great. The fact is, it is a blueprint, an early blueprint for rock and roll and how it's supposed to sound. Not only the music, but the voice. Well, yeah, I think it was a surprise because we'd been doing country, and Ken Nelson had some country hits out of there, and then all of a sudden just to have a rock and roll hit, I think it was really good for our studio. I think it was good for Nashville, and also it was good for Ken because it saved his job if he really was. I doubt if he was in danger, but it certainly was a feather in his cap and our cap. I wasn't taking a lot of notes back then, just working sessions, and we took note of doing those things because they were out of the ordinary. To work with Gene Vincent and to work with Buddy Holly, even though we did Buddy Holly, not near as good as we did Gene Vincent. Buddy's was more rockabilly with a lot of Chet Atkins style guitar, and nowhere near what Buddy Holly ended up doing. And of course, Elvis's early records were very sparse too, with just 3 or 4 instruments on them. But we really didn't know what we were doing. We were just, rock and roll was being invented, and we weren't sure it was a good thing, but it was a lot of fun to play it or try to play it, and it was just a part of Nashville being formed into the musical entity that it is today. Yes, I remember hearing about it, but at that time it was like hearing about Elvis. I'd worked with Elvis from 1962 to 1971 in the studio, or 1970 in the studio, and then he used his touring band to record with. And so after you lose contact with somebody at 15, 20 years, and you don't talk to them, you don't see them, it's a different effect. Of course, I was sad that any time that we lose anyone.